So, welcome to the channel, That Retired Guy. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about one of the favorite pastimes for seniors, thrifting. Yeah, I said thrifting. If you want to know where all the seniors are on a Tuesday afternoon, just head on down to Value Village. There they are, Seniors Day. Why are seniors so attracted to thrift shops? Is it really just because we're cheap? Probably one of the main reasons. But I suspect one of the reasons is it's the only place you can go and buy really old stuff. It's sort of like taking a walk down memory lane. You can browse through those old vinyl records. You can buy Brown Betty teapots. You can buy bell-bottom jeans and tie-dye t-shirts, lava lamps, all the cool stuff from back in the day. Hanging out in a thrift shop brings back all those old memories. You know, back in the day before COVID. I mean, those were the days when we all had hair. I mean, we could party all night long. I mean, these days I'm getting ready for bed just as the kids are getting ready to go out to party. Nostalgia may be one of the reasons why seniors love thrifting, but I got a feeling that one of the big reasons is that all thrift shops generally have some kind of relationship with a charity. So every time you get involved with a thrift shop, every time you pack up those bags of clothes and pack up those boxes of dishes and that sort of thing and take them down to a thrift shop, you're doing something good for the world. Yeah, every now and then you clean out your closets, you take away all those knickknacks, you get a chance to redecorate your house, and heck, it doesn't hurt that when you take all that stuff in, they give you a coupon. I know for me, after I retired, giving back was something that I was thinking a lot more about. I had a lot of good years, I had a good career, raised a family, a lot to be thankful for. And so, come retirement time, you start thinking maybe I should be giving back. Thrifting is just one small way of doing that. I think I was retired only 1 year and I decided I was going to actually go and spend some time in Africa and do some volunteer work. I signed up with a Canadian volunteer agency, went over to Cameroon, Africa to help them with their education system, particularly helping girls get into schools. It was quite an experience and one I'll never forget. And when I was over there, I wrote a series of blogs that I documented, and actually I'm turning that into a book, so stay tuned. I'll let you know when the book is out. But anyway, back to thrifting. So that whole charity aspect is an important part of the whole thrifting exercise. Yeah, I mean, you get great deals, but thrifting is really all about supporting charities. In fact, most thrift shops are attached to a charity. There's a lot of churches that run thrift shops for their ministry work overseas. And there's the standard ones that you and I all know, Value Village, Goodwill, and the Salvation Army. There's one actually not far from here that is a thrift shop for a hospice. Great cause, and we give a lot of our stuff to those guys. But I thought it would be really interesting to take a look at these charities and figure out which ones are really the ones that are doing the best work and the ones that you may want to support with your donations or with your business. Let's take a little look at these three main charities that most people are familiar with. That is like Value Village, Salvation Army, and Goodwill. So starting off with Value Village, first of all, the one thing to know is it's part of a large conglomerate called the Savers Group, mostly out of the U.S., but Value Village has about 300 locations in Canada. It is a for-profit company. Most people don't know that. They think that Value Village is a charity, but it's really not. It's got an annual revenue of $1.5 billion. Those are 2014 numbers. The main thing that Value Village says that it offers is that it's a recycling operation, that it actually diverts waste from the landfill. So all those clothes and all that, that toaster and everything that you give them, what they do is they put it on the shelf and then they sell it. And that way it doesn't go to the landfill. The other thing that they do is if you give donations to various charities like Diabetes Foundation and that, what they do is they will buy those bags of goods that you donated to that charity at a certain cost per pound. And they call that then their donation to charity, is when they're buying those materials from those groups. So what they're saying is that they have spent $160 million on buying material from those charity groups. And that's the good that they do. So for example, there's a disabled veterans charity in the United States that collects up clothes and that, and then sells them to Value Village or Savers, and they get 45 cents a pound for the clothes. They get 3 cents a pound for household goods, and that's how they get their revenue to support the charity. Now, Diabetes Canada, as another example, gets $8.7 million when they sell their donated goods to Value Village in Canada. And that's how they work. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is how do they treat their employees and how do they pay their employees? Well, just to give you a comparison, cashiers make $11.40 an hour at Value Village, and you can make $14 an hour if you're in the warehouse. So you're still not really making a lot of money. You're not going to Value Village to support some great careers. So now let's take a look at Goodwill. Now, Goodwill actually is a nonprofit, but interesting side story about Goodwill is that they used to have shops in a lot of Canada and a lot in Toronto, but they actually closed down all their Toronto operations. They said that they were losing money. They had cash flow problems. Of course, it makes you wonder, you get free inventory and you got to turn around and sell that and you can't make money? I'm not sure how that happens. Now, I am most familiar with the stores in the U.S., particularly Florida. We used to go there a fair bit when we were down there. They have closed the 16 stores in Toronto, but there are other stores in Ontario, and I think they have 5 of them in Alberta. Goodwill in Canada and the U.S., it has an annual revenue of $4 billion. That's a 2018 number. Now, what is the good that they do? Well, they say that they employ and they job train people. That's really if you're thinking about what is the charity aspect of it, it's that they employ unemployable people. So they'll employ handicapped people, people just getting released from prison. They give them jobs. Now, the other thing to know about that is that they're paying those people below minimum wage when they're working there. They rely on government grants to help pay those people their wages. And so, the good that they say that they're doing about employing people, you have to take that into account. One of the concerns I have with a lot of these charity operations that are collecting up donations of clothes and that sort of thing is often they will take the clothes that are donated and they'll ship them overseas. When I was in Africa, doing the volunteer work over there, I'd go to the local market and you'd find these trucks would pull up and they'd unload huge bags of clothes that I know have come from the Goodwill or whatever store back in North America. And they'd put them on the ground there and they would undercut the local retail operations and putting a lot of those people out of business. So, there's some ups and downs to this whole donation thing. It needs to be better managed, I think. Okay, so the other one that I think most of us are familiar with is the Salvation Army. Now, it was founded back in 1865 by William Booth. Now, this was a breakaway from the Methodists and the Anglican Church at the time, and he felt that the churches weren't doing enough for the poor and for the sick. It's located now in over 400 communities all across Canada. Salvation Army, again, is a nonprofit, so it's not a for-profit company like Value Village. So their revenues are over $500 million. It's made up of $193 million of donations that they get, plus they get $263 million in government funding and $83 million in fee for services. So that comes to just over $500 million of revenue every year. Now, what's interesting about Salvation Army is that they have a pretty good track record of not having a whole lot of overhead costs. They run at 20%, and I think only about 3 or 4% of that is actual administrative costs. The rest of it is fundraising costs. So 80 cents on every dollar that goes to Salvation Army is actually used for their charity work. Now, it turns out that Salvation Army is the largest social services provider in Canada, second only to the government. So they play a massive role in this country in a whole lot of different areas. The good that they do, we can break it down by percentage. 41% of the money that they spend is on addiction, sort of recovery programs. It's on corrections, and it's on residential programs. 27% of the money they spend is on healthcare, things like hospital visits and daycare, that sort of thing. And 13% is on community and family services. And there we're talking about financial, educational, even nutritional. They run programs where they feed people. In 2019, they gave out 3.4 million meals in their shelter programs. So pretty big operation. So to sum up those three main thrifting operations, Value Village, Goodwill, and Salvation Army. Value Village is, or Savers Corporation, is actually not a profit. They're not a nonprofit. They're a for-profit organization. Goodwill and Salvation Army are nonprofit, but Goodwill, the good that it says that it does for the world is employing the unemployable and job training. Salvation Army, the good that they say that they do is spread over things like addictions, recovery, healthcare, community services, that sort of thing. Just so you know when you're deciding which thrifting operation you want to support. There are, of course, a lot of other thrift shops out there, most of them doing really good work, and I'm sure you and I all have our favorites. There are a couple, though, that I'd like to share with you. One of them is the Mennonite Central Committee. They run the fair trade shops, and they run their own thrift stores. It was founded actually in 1920 in the U.S. and 1963 in Canada. Now, it did a lot of work overseas in Eastern Europe. There was starvation in the Ukraine and did a lot of work in Poland and that sort of thing in the early days. Later on, it got involved more in the 70s and the 80s with a focus on health, education, advocating for peace around the world, and also fair trade. And you probably know about their associated businesses, the fair trade stores. Now, they operate over 100 thrift shops in North America, and they have 2015, they had an annual revenue of $16 million. They run the 10,000 Villages stores, which unfortunately a lot of them have been closing now due to COVID, but there were quite a few all across Canada, and they do the fair trade work. Now, 94% of their revenue goes to the cause, so they're a very efficient, low overhead kind of operation. Now, they do a lot of work in international work, but they got, $8 million in government funding, I believe, in the last couple of years. Now, 2019, they spent $38 million on 646 projects in 57 different countries around the world, so they are quite international. 57% of the money that they spend goes to what they call sustainable development projects. 31% are really disaster relief, so kind of they're there with the Red Cross and those kind of agencies. And also 12% for what they call justice and peace building around the world. Now, in Canada, they spent $1.6 million on migrant resettlement, so they're doing a lot of work in this country as well. So you probably know them by their thrift stores throughout Canada. So there's another charity operation that is worthy of our support, especially through their thrift stores and their 10,000 Villages operations. Now, the one that I mentioned earlier that we tend to support when I'm out west here is this hospice thrift store. And they send their proceeds from the thrift store to support the Peace Arch Hospice, which is just down the road here from us. Now, 28% of their budget for the hospice comes from the thrift store, and 30% from donations, 27% from grants, and 15% from fundraising. Now, the thing about these thrift stores, the hospice thrift store in particular, is it's all run by volunteers, so very low overhead, and of course the money goes to a worthy cause. Hospice is something that's not funded by our Canadian health system, and I think that's a shame. So I make a point of supporting the hospice thrift store. Oh yeah, and just so you know, there actually is a National Thrift Shop Day, August 17th. Be there, be square. So there's some info on what's behind this thrifting craze. As I said, one of the favorite pastimes of seniors, just like me. So be sure to support your local charity, whether it's through donations or going into the store and buying stuff. We can all do our part. So I hope you found this helpful, and as I say, please like and subscribe. Hope to see all you thrifters back here for the next episode of That Retired Guy. Till then, live your best life.